Hello everyone, back tuning into today's video. It's JMA Friday. As always, on a Friday we're going to have a look at the weather for the coming month. It's going to take us into December, so we'll be going to the start of the winter with this update. So it'll be very interesting to see what the JMA and CFS long-range models are predicting for the coming month in a second. I'll get on with that in a moment. Before I get on with that, just say about the ads. So there's links to articles all over pages. If you have a browse widgets and click through links, you'll be able to pay for our website. And thanks very much for doing that. There's also video ads post pages which open up content, and when you watch them, they close back up again, and it does help to pay the gaswithis.com. And the shop is open, Amazon shop. So if you've got any Christmas shopping to do at Amazon between now and Christmas, all you have to do is click the green button that says Christmas Shop. It'll take to our shop, where you will be greeted by snowflakes trickling down your screen, and you also get a Merry Christmas in the message on the Christmas page. But most important thing is the Amazon banners, and just click through those and go to Amazon. And because you're going from Gazweathers to Amazon, we get a revenue fee on the things that you are purchasing. And thanks so much for doing it. You've got loads of time to get your Christmas presents in from Amazon, but to just keep it in mind that if you've got any shopping to do between now and Christmas at Amazon, do it via Gazweathers, and we'll get a revenue fee on things that you are purchasing. Thanks very much for doing that. So we're going to start off with the JMA, as always. We'll start off with the 500 millibar height anomaly charts for the next month. These are broken down into weekly periods, and then we'll have a look at the corresponding temperature and precipitation anomalies that go with these heights. And then we'll move on to the CFS V2. So the first week period will take us from the week we just started, the 11th, through to the 18th of the month, so the 18th of November. As I said, with these charts, red, yellow, orange, the brighter colours will extrapolate to high pressure, and blue extrapolates to low pressure. So for the coming week, we see a bit of a change on what we've had through November so far. In fact, through much of the autumn so far, we haven't really seen a lot in the way of westerly winds, but they're coming back a bit over the coming week. So we find the jet stream strengthening. That's indicated by the tight lines coming across the Atlantic into the UK. We've got high pressure down to the south and the southwest, got low pressure up to the north, so it's a westerly flow. It looks more unsettled, this, although it's not going to be a wash-up because we are close to that ridge still, which is centred down just to the southwest of the country, but it's a more unsettled westerly flow. There will be some showers, maybe even some bands of rain coming through at times, and probably milder as well compared to what we've had recently. Week 2, which takes us from the 18th through 25th of November. This one looks very unsettled. We've got a trough of low pressure pretty much centred over the top of the country. That ridge down to the southwest is a lot weaker. Also signs of high pressure up to the north, so we have still got hints of northern blocking up there to the north of the country, but generally we're just within this area of low pressure, so that's going to be still probably bringing the winds in from the west, although they could be more northwest to southeast with that, and we might be starting to move the jet stream a bit to the south as well. So cool and excuse me, cool and unsettled, I think, really sums that one up. Temperature's probably a little bit cooler than average, but the main thing could be fairly wet weather, so pretty wet spell coming up there in the second half of November. And then we go through to weeks 3 and weeks 4, which is 25th of November through to the 9th of December. And all change again. What happens with this one is that we've got ridge of above average heights over and to the north of the country generally, extending through the Atlantic, through the UK, to the north of the UK, and also in towards central parts of Europe. I think that's probably turning the flow into the east, particularly so to the south. We've got low pressure cut off to the south here, which does indicate a little bit that the jet stream is moving to the south of the UK. That will place us on the cold side of the jet. I expect when we look at the temperature anomalies, they'll be coming out above average with that sort of pattern, but actually that could be quite cold, especially if we start to draw in the winds from the east in the early part of December. I think we could see some really quite cold weather coming in across the south of the country particularly, but all areas would be at risk of some quite hard overnight frost and maybe fog as well. So ending November, starting December, potentially on an increasingly settled but also cold, frosty note. let's have a look at the temperature and precipitation anomalies. This is the tropical and mid-latitude view. So just here is where we've got the tropics. The equator is there. To the north of that, we've got the northern hemisphere just here, and to the south of it, we've got the southern hemisphere. Of course, the polar regions are off the chart. They're up here somewhere. That's the North Pole up there. We've just looked at that, of course, from the pole down. And the South Pole, of course, again, off the chart, is down here. And the main thing you need to know is that British Isles is just here in the top right-hand corner of the chart as you are looking at it. So now that we know where everybody is, let's just recap on the 500 millibar height anomaly for the coming week. So the 11th through to the 18th, we have the ridge down to the south and the west, got low pressure up here and bringing the jet stream through rather like that. So we expect quite an unsettled week. The precipitation anomaly is coming out above average, particularly so for the north, nearer normal further south, but it does look an unsettled week coming up. And also fairly mild as well. The temperatures are lifting up. It's always expected to get this milder phase through the middle part of November. So that is coming off quite nicely, milder and more unsettled Atlantic-driven weather. Week 2, which is the 18th to 25th of November, places the trough of low pressure right over the top of the country, so it looks unsettled and potentially also quite cool as well. I think I would expect the temperatures to lower a little bit. Rainfall, though, is coming out above average. You expect that is a trough of low pressure over the top of the country, so quite a wet week coming up there from the 18th to 25th. And temperatures, they are lowering. They're still a little bit on the milder side of average through most parts of the country, but significantly lower compared to what we have through the coming weeks. So fairly cool and unsettled there as we go through to the second half of the month. Maybe not as cold as we was anticipating when we did the November month-end forecast, but cool and unsettled really sums it up. And then we go through to weeks 3 and 4, the 25th of November to the 9th of December. And it's all changed again because we've got a ridge of high pressure coming back over the country and generally centering to the north, which we thought, if we come over to this side of the chart, with the ridge up here, we probably start to draw the winds in from the east, particularly so for southern parts of the country. I expect this to be a drier week. That's what the model is showing, or a drier couple of weeks. That's what the model is showing. Most places going a bit drier than average, so that makes sense. The temperature anomaly is interesting because it's coming out above average. It's coming out warmer than average there for those 2 weeks at the end of November into start of December. I think that will be a colder week than the model is indicating. If you've got a ridge of above average heights and you're drawing the air in off the continent, which we would be doing so based on the position of that area of high pressure, in December, that's going to be cold. So even if the upper air temperatures are fairly mild, they could be, down on the surface, it is going to be cold. You're going to get frost, you're going to get fog, because heat radiates out in space very, very quickly. The nights are really long. Of course, in December, virtually at our shortest days, and the sun going to its lowest point in the southern hemisphere. So once you add it all up, I think that does spell out a cold end to November, and particularly start of December with a lot of frost and fog. And if the easterly wind does get up in the south of the country, not out of question, that could bring some wintry showers into southern and eastern parts. So lower those temperature anomalies for that week 3, week 4 period. Lower those temperature anomalies, which are indicated to be around 1 to 2 degrees above average. Lower them probably to around 1 to 2 degrees below average. Having a look at CFS V2, and this is the 500 millibar height anomaly for the coming week. Again, it's the 11th through to the 17th of November. Very good agreement between the JMA and the CFS for the pattern on the way. We've got high pressure down to the southwest, got quite a deep trough of low pressure up to the northwest, and we bring the jet stream through the country like that. So it's Atlantic driven, it's milder, and it's more unsettled through the coming week. And good agreement for week 2 as well. This is when the JMA was placing that trough right over the UK. The CFS V2 going for that as well. Notice all this red up to the north, loads of blocking, just not quite in the position at this point to be delivering us cold weather, but nevertheless still lots and lots of blocking up to the north of the country. But we're being driven by this trough which is out to the west. That's feeding in west to southwesterly winds, so it would still be fairly mild and very unsettled as well. That's a deep trough sitting just to the northwest of the country, and those blue colours turn up. That's a deep trough. So that one, 18th, 24th, in agreement with the JMA, to be quite a wet week. We might have to think a bit about flooding, localised flooding, as we go through this latter stage of November. Now, week 3, which is the 25th through to the 1st of December, that one shows a change again. The trough is being placed to the south of Greenland as heights are strengthening across Scandinavia and generally across Eastern Europe. Quite a complicated pattern. The flow is going something a bit like that. In summer, that would be indications for a heat wave. Of course, it's winter, so what's likely to be happening there is that the air is being drawn in from a southeasterly direction. Now, if the air flow is southwesterly, it's going to be mild if the air is coming from that direction. If the flow is southeasterly, it's likely to be cold, drawing low-level cold air in off the continent. I think that's the most likely scenario there as we're heading to the end of November. Inside December, I would expect it turns colder with low-level continental air coming in off the continent. Again, when we look at the temperature anomaly from the model, it'll probably be going for milder than average for this week, because it's looking at the parameters of the upper air temperatures, which probably would be fairly mild, because we're not drawing in true Arctic air. But down on the surface, you will get inversion type cold with a fair amount of frost and fog being probable. And then good agreement again with the JMA for week 4, which is the 2nd through to the 8th of December. That one just really placing a ridge through the country. So high pressure ridging through the Atlantic, through to the north of the country, and then up to the northeast. Again, I think we could well be drawing in the air from the east, particularly across southern parts of the country. There's a cut-off low down to the south. Again, that's in agreement with the JMA. Remarkable agreement between these two models this morning. It doesn't always happen like this, but they really are agreeing with one another on the way ahead for the coming month. So the start of December likely to be frosty and cold, possibly with easterly winds in the southern part of the country, which could bring in colder conditions, if you like. So most parts having frost and fog, but in the south, maybe a cold easterly wind, perhaps cold enough to produce a few wintry showers. This is how temperature anomalies are looking. The coming week, 11th, 17th, is milder than average. It's Atlantic driven, so that one makes sense. We place that trough around the country for the 18th, 24th. That comes out a bit milder than average as well, particularly for southern parts of the country. I think both of those 2 weeks are okay, although that week 2 anomaly might be a bit too high, perhaps closer to average for that one. Now, week 3, which we've got all that ridging to the east of us, and probably drawing in southeasterly winds, the model is still showing milder than average for that week, 25th to the 1st of December. I think that would be colder, because I think the flow would be off the continent, and we would be expecting frost and fog to be coming through at that point. So expect that to be a colder week there at the end of November. And then the final week, week 4, the 2nd through to the 8th of December, looking milder than average for the north, nearer normal for the south. I think by then we would probably be down into colder than average categories, somewhere around here on the scale. So it's okay for the first couple of weeks being milder than average, and then weeks 3, weeks 4, same as with the JMA really, lower those temperature anomalies by a degree or so, and you're probably closer to where we end up. Then finally, precipitation, the next week is looking a bit wetter than average. It's Atlantic driven, so that makes sense. Then a very wet week from the 18th to the 24th with significantly wetter than average anomalies. That looks a really wet week, perhaps our wettest week for a long time, because we've had a very dry autumn actually, and even back into the summer, a lot of dry weather. So you probably have to go quite a long way back, maybe to last winter, to find a week that's potentially as wet as this one. The 18th to the 24th does look a very wet week. Week 3 turns drier. That's as high pressure, of course, is building to the east of the country, so it's starting to block off the Atlantic. That one looks drier, although still slightly above average rainfall for the western part of the country. And then by week 4, we've lost the signal, really, as we always do by week 4 for precipitation. The signals get very weak. I would have thought that's likely to be a fairly dry week there from the 2nd to the 8th of December, because it's suggesting a ridge is through the country, and not hardly going to be wet with a ridge sitting around the UK. So expect things to turn drier at the end of November and into the start of December. So excellent agreement on the face of it between the two models for the way forward for the coming month. Of course, they could be getting it completely wrong. They're both agreeing, but they might be both agreeing on the wrong pattern. But if we assume that they are getting things right, we're going into a more unsettled and milder phase, as expected, through the middle part of November. We get through to the latter stages of November, and we was expecting a return to northern blocking. It looks like that might not happen. Now, what probably happens is that we just get a ridge building later in the month. That probably does turn it colder and it takes us to frost and fog, but maybe not really wintry Arctic type conditions. So unsettled and mild for the middle phase of the month, then colder, drier at the end of the month, that probably extending into December as well, when we may start to pick up more of an easterly influence into the south of the country. And if we do get those easterly winds coming in during early December, then of course it will be cold, and it may even be cold enough to bring some wintry showers into the south and the east. That's how it's looking today. As ever, remember that long-range forecasting is highly experimental. These models are not to be relied upon, so it's just a bit of fun, really, and just showing you what the models are thinking today. But it could all look very different next week. Tomorrow, it's the weekend forecast, and we'll also have the 6th Christmas update, so that'll be with you tomorrow. Come back for that. That's all for now, and thanks for watching.